Okay, just start recording. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to APNIC e-learning web class. We'll be doing how to send IP request to APNIC. Okay. So as I said, when we discuss how to request IP address to APNIC, so we'll be kind of discussing about the policies and procedures that involves in sending IP requests to APNIC, right? And also what are the web-based interfaces that you have or you need to follow. We'll be kind of covering a little bit of this as well. Okay. So when we'll do the presentation today, you can ask question anytime. So if you have any question, you don't need to wait till the end of the presentation. You can ask me the question anytime. Just ask the question on the chat box. There's a chat box that you use to interact with me. So just put your or write your question on the chat box. So I'll try to kind of spot your question and try to answer that as quick as I can. All right, good. Little bit of introduction about myself. My name is Nurul Islam Roman. I'm the senior training specialist now in APNIC. So I joined in APNIC in 2006, and my specialization is on routing, switching, MPLS, IPv6, DNS, DNSSEC, Internet Resource Management that I'm doing today, and network security. So if you have any question related to those areas, yeah, you can ask any question to me today with the context that we're doing today. Okay. So as an FAQ, we have the common problem that you might face, so that we have outlined in our webpage www.apnic.net/elearning-support, right? So if you just go and have a look, if you're facing any difficulties using our e-learning platform, you might get some answer already on the web page. There is a question: I missed the first session, will you post it online? Okay. If you go and check in our video archive, so some of those are in the archive. Yeah, sure, we'll post on the online, the video archive. Okay, so when you finish the presentation today, we will be showing you an URL. From the URL, you can send or you can give us some feedback. Your feedback is very important to us to improve our future e-learning session. Okay, so I'll be showing you that URL that you can use to send us feedback. Okay, so where do the IP address come from? So the IP address that we use to build our network, right? Where do that address come from? So there are two types of address, definitely like one is the private address that we have a special range for that. And if you're building your own private network, so most of the time you prefer to use the private address, right? Because your network is not connected to the internet. But when the question comes for the public address, in a situation where you will connect your network to the internet, then you need a public address, right? And that public address actually comes from those source. IETF, they usually define the standard, and then from there it goes to IANA, who is the Central Internet Registry, right? So IANA, the Central Internet Registry, they distribute address in bulk to the regional internet registries, right? There are 5 regional internet registries around the world. So if you see the IP address distribution and management framework in internet, the whole world is divided into 5 regions. APNIC or Asia Pacific, 1 region. So if you are in Asia Pacific, so APNIC would be your registry from where you can get that address from, the public internet address, right? Either V4, V6 or AS numbers. Okay, so yeah. So from the registry, when you are a member of the registry, you get address from the registry. So for example, in your case from APNIC, when you get address from APNIC as an ISP, right? So you will be given an allocation, and that allocation, what you can do, you can further assign it to your downstream customer. So this is how the downstream customer, they usually get address, right? And did you see the hierarchy from where the address comes and from where the address has been used? So this is what sort of a flow of IP addresses. So this is how you can get an address and you can use it. So most of the time the ISPs like this, they build a network, and from there the end users they get the internet service. So end users, they get the internet service from their ISPs. So ISP, they usually become member of the registry, and from there they get that address. Okay. So this is how the address comes. As I said, regional internet registries. There are 5 regional internet registry. APNIC is one of them. APNIC serve in Asia Pacific. If you see that jurisdiction in APNIC, so this is what APNIC region. So on the west we have Afghanistan, India, Sri Lanka, right? Those Australia, New Zealand, Guam on the east, Japan and Mongolia, and this part. This is what APNIC region. We work nearly 56 economy to distribute our addresses. The same way we have our corresponding registry in Europe. So European Internet Register, the green one, the very big one. Then we have the Internet Registry for Africa. This is what the African Internet Registry. Then we have got Internet Registry for Latin America, right? This is what the LACNIC. Then we have Internet Registry for ARIN, so North America and Caribbean. So this is where only the North America, you have Caribbean that belongs to LACNIC. So this is how 5 registry operate to distribute the addresses. Okay. Okay. So regional internet registry structure. If you see the structure, so yeah, IANA is obviously on top, which is the central registry. From there, all the addresses comes. And it is distributed to the 5 regional internet registry. This is how the prefix comes to APNIC in a bulk, like /8 in IPv4, /12 in IPv6. Then from APNIC, APNIC has got a direct member in different economy, and in some economy, APNIC also has got a sort of NIR or National Internet Registry. So the country or the economy where we have the national internet registries, ISPs or enterprise organization on that economy, they are open, like they can either go to the national internet registry and get that address. So if they approach to the national internet registry to get that address, national internet registry will come to APNIC to get that address on behalf of them. And this is how APNIC distribute in some economy where we have the national internet registry. The reason we have national internet registry in some country because this will make things much easier for that economy. So in some economy, if English is not sort of a first language, definitely they can interact with their own national internet registry in their own language, in their own policy, country specific policy if they have some time, right? And then they can get the address from APNIC directly. On the other hand, I mean, as I said, where in the economy where we have national internet registries, the members are still open to get it directly from APNIC. It's up to them how they prefer, how they are comfortable. And some economy where we don't have national internet registry, right? For example, say in Singapore, so the ISPs or the organization or enterprise organization in that economy, they can directly come to APNIC and become APNIC member and get the resources. So this is how the registry structure works. In some places where we have the big ISPs as a member, big ISP can have a small ISP as a customer, and those small ISP will get address from the bigger ISP, right? So this is how address actually comes from. So how do I get address? So the question is, when you need an address, how you get that address? So when you need to answer that question, how do I get the get address, you need to decide what kind of numbers or what kind of address that you need. Do you need IPv4 address only, or do you need IPv6 address only, or you need both, right? or at some situation you need both IPv4, IPv6 and AS number to build your own BGP or own your AS, right? So you need an AS number as well. So this is how you need to decide what kind of resources that you need. Most likely case, you might need all the resources, right? If you're running a big network, so IPv4 address, IPv6 address, and an AS number. Then you need to decide how many IPv4 address that you need, how many IPv6 address you need, and how many AS number you need based on your infrastructure. How big is your infrastructure and your planning, right? So this is how we decide what kind of address and how many address that we need. Then we check our eligibility, like do I or how can I be eligible to get an address from APNIC, right? So all those eligibility criteria are outlined in APNIC website www.apnic.net, right? Or you can send an email to helpdesk at apnic.net. They can also help you to let you know, whether you will be qualified to get an address from APNIC or not. So the qualification criteria that comes in here, because when you run an internet, right, there are some do's and don'ts. Those do's and don'ts are kind of implemented in the internet infrastructure by using policies, right? And those policies are developed by the users or the community itself. It's sort of bottom-up policy. So no one has built that policy. The internet community who will build and operate the internet, they develop their own policies. So based on that policies, right, your eligibility criteria will be determined. So for example, some cases, the end users who need only one IP address, right, and they can't just straight away come to APNIC and want to become APNIC member just for the sake of one or two IP address, right? So in that case, probably you'll not qualify to get an address directly from APNIC. APNIC will suggest to you to go and get it from your ISPs because your requirement is very, very less. And yeah. And the reason APNIC will not be giving you the address if your requirement is very, very less, this will have an impact in the global routing table, right? So yeah, probably we'll discuss when slide will come. So those are the do's and don'ts now are kind of implemented using the policies, right? So you need to be familiar with the policies. So if you're familiar with the policies, then you know how many addresses that you might need and how you'll get it from APNIC. Then at the end, just apply for the membership and resources, and we have a online form for that. I'll explain, I'll show you those forms. So the address space, IPv4 address space that we have, if you see the status of it, what is the current status of that IPv4 address? We know very well IPv4 address is running out soon, right? Or already gone in some part of the world. So the whole IPv4 addresses, if you see the number of addresses that we have, IPv4 addresses has got 4 octets, out of 4 octet, first octet will determine 8 bits. So this is how we call /8. So if you see how many /8 that we have in current IPv4 address, it's only 256/8, right? Because first octet 8-bit binary bit can calculate or can determine 2 raised to 8, which is 256 number of /8. Out of that 256 number of /8, Central Registry, IANA, actually in early days, they have distributed 91 number of /8. Those are the historical addresses long before Central Registry has distributed, right? That time there was no policy, no address management concept, right? They just gave the address depending on how many address people need. All right, then afterward, when Central Registry has identified this is how if this distribute or keep distributing addresses, then definitely it's not a good way, right? This is how we'll be running out of address very, very soon. Then in the Central Registry, they have introduced the regional registry concept, and then this is how 4 regional internet registries, for example, APNIC, RIPE, NCC, LACNIC, APNIC, and ARIN came, right? So through that RIR, regional internet registries, the Central Registry has distributed 130 number of /8. So out of the 130 number of /8, APNIC has got 45, ARIN has got 36, APNIC has got 5, LACNIC has got 9, and RIPE has got 35. So those are the distribution of 130 number of 1/8. And there are some addresses are not available. So for example, experimental purpose, there are 16, local identification, loopback, private use, multicast. So there are a number of addresses in IPv4 these are for different purpose. So if you see out of all those addresses that the registry has been distributed, and at this stage, IANA as a central registry doesn't have any /8 block in IPv4 left to be distributed further, right? If there are some left, only on the regional internet registry level. So let's see which registry has got how many /8. This stat on September 2012, NRO stat, according to the stat, APNIC has got 4/4.11/8. APNIC has got less than 1/8, which is 0.91/8. That's why in APNIC region we have got final /8 policy. Under that final /8 policy, it means when APNIC reach to the final /8, which is on 14th of April 2011, right? So after that, you will not get any address greater than /22, right? So then in APNIC region, we have only 0.91 number of /8. In ARIAN region, they still have 2.86 number of /8. LACNIC has got 3.21 number of /8. RIPE NCC as of September 2011, slightly above 1/8. But in the current situation, they are now even less than a /8. So in RIPE NCC region, also we have the final /8 policy, which means a single ISP or any organization will not get more than a /22 from the final /8 block. All right, so in terms of your eligibility, like check your eligibility, whether you will be qualified to get address or not. Okay, let's see how you'll get address, to see the eligibility criteria. First, you might need to decide what you need. You need IPv4, right? Under IPv4, we have that qualification criteria for local internet registries. So for example, ISPs, right? ISPs can get an address, IPv4 address. For ISPs, the qualification criteria is just they need to show APNIC that they are a service provider, and they have got at least 25% of the total requirement. So if they are requesting for a /24, right, then 25% of it is probably 1/4 of their address. They need to show us they need it now from day one, and at least 50% in one year time, right? Then they'll get a double of the requirement, which is /24. So that is what the criteria for the local internet registry. So if you're not a local internet or an ISP, if you're not a local internet registry or an ISP, right, then how you'll get, say for example, an enterprise, a bank is not an ISP, then how they'll get an address, right? So for them, we have another criteria, which is we call small multi-homing request. So if an organization who is not a service provider, who is not an ISP or an LIR, right, they still can get an address from APNIC, but they need to show APNIC that they will be multi-home, right? Either they are multi-home now or they will be multi-home. Multi-home means you have internet connectivity from two different ISP or two different AS, right, for your link redundancy purpose. So for your link redundancy purpose, say for a bank, if they're connected to two different ISP, right, they need a portable address from APNIC. They can qualify to get an address from APNIC, okay? In your case, say for example, if you are not multi-home now, but you have a plan to be multi-home in 1 month time, still you will be qualified to get an address from APNIC. That is what one criteria if you are not an ISP. What is the second criteria? Second criteria is you're not an ISP, you're not a multi-homing organization, but you are an IXP, Internet Exchange Point. So to build an Internet Exchange Point, you need address, right? So to get that address, what you need to show APNIC, yes, you are an Internet Exchange Point and you have an open peering policy. When you have an open peering policy, right? So you'll get you'll be qualifying to get an address from APNIC. Then the third one is the critical infrastructure. What is the critical infrastructure? Critical infrastructure is type of infrastructure that has got a special definition in terms of the IP address management. Critical infrastructure is only CCTLD, GTLD, root DNS operator, registry like APNIC, National Internet Registry, right? So those are the organizational critical infrastructure. If you fall under any of those defined critical infrastructure, then you'll qualify to get an address, right? So these are the qualification criteria to get an address. Most likely case, people or the organization will fall under ISP or LIR or small multi-homing organization. If you're a multi-homing organization, you will get an address, right? In IPv6, it's much easier. If you are an existing member of APNIC has got IPv4, you'll automatically qualify to get an IPv6, right? If your IPv4 address is, say for example, assignment as a multi-homing organization, right? Then on IPv6, you'll also get an equivalent assignment, which is /48. If you're an ISP in IPv4, right, you got an allocation, then in IPv6, you'll get an equivalent allocation, which is /32, right? So this is what the qualification criteria you'll get automatically. You'll qualify automatically to get IPv6 address. As a new member, if you don't have an IPv4, then how will you qualify to get IPv6 address? So in that case, you need to show APNIC you have a plan to deploy your IPv6 within 2 years time to at least 200 end site. That's it, right? 2 years time, at least 200 end site, then you will get qualified to get an IPv6 address. So getting IPv6 address is even much easier than IPv4 now. So any questions so far? Okay, thank you, good to know. So as I said, if you see this slide, to qualify to get IPv4 address, if I summarize the whole concept, so to get an IPv4 address, either you have to be an LIR or a local internet registry. LIR stands for Internet Service Provider, right? Who provides services. So if you are a bank, you provide service to your customer, definitely. But in terms of the internet infrastructure, how you manage it, probably you're not the service provider, because a bank are not going to provide internet service, but they'll provide banking service. So that's why in terms of IP address management, bank is not a service provider. Who is a service provider in terms of the IP address management? Who provide internet service? Could be an ISP, could be a telco, could be a data center, right? So for those, they belongs to the criteria of LIR, local internet registry, or ISP, and they can get address. End sites, so for example, big corporates, bank, academic institutes, so they need portable address. When I'm saying portable address, it means for your scalable networking purpose, like to build a scalable network, right? Interneting environment, a network environment into your infrastructure, you might need link redundancy. So if one link goes down, you might use other link to kind of divert your traffic, like so you'll eliminate single point of failure. If you want to build this sort of infrastructure, you can't rely on a non-portable address from the ISP. You need your own address, because if you have a portable address, your benefit is if any of the service provider is not doing good, is not providing you good service, you can just move out and you don't need to renumber your whole network. So that's what the benefit of the portable address. So when you have a portable address, right, you can just choose your service provider anytime, right, and you configure your own BGP. So in this sort of requirement, a bank, an academic institutes, a big organization, they might have this sort of requirement. So they can directly come to APNIC and get a portable address. And as I said, to get a portable address directly from APNIC, you need to justify or you need to qualify some qualification criteria, which is you have to be multi-home or you need to be multi-home. Multi-home means you need to have at least more than one upstream. There is a difference between multi-home and multi-link. Multi-home means you are connected to two different peers in AS number, two different AAS, right? And multi-link means you are connected to the same ISP but two different POP. So if your situation is you are connected to the same ISP but two different POP, probably you will not qualify to get an address from APNIC. To qualify to get an address from APNIC, you need to have two different PRs, two different AAs on your upstream, two different organizations in terms of AS number, right? Then you will qualify to get an address. And then the next one is IXP, as I said, Internet Exchange Point. You have to have a open pairing policy, and then critical infrastructure. So critical infrastructure, as I said, root server operator, GTLD operator, CCTLD operator, RIS, and others. All right. So under those category, you can qualify to get an address. Then that is applicable for both IPv4 and IPv6. Okay. So initial delegation requirement. Since APNIC now in final /8 policy, so it means by default you'll be given a /24 delegation, right? By default you'll be given as less as a /24, not less than a /24. And to qualify to get a /24, you need to show APNIC you have at least 25% IP address requirement today, right? Which is 64 IP address today. And in 1 year time, you need to show APNIC you'll be using 128 number of IP addresses. Then you'll get a /24, which is 256 number of address. So in this delegation, when you receive a /24, you can get further address in IPv4, but that would be as maximum as /22, not more than a /22. Doesn't matter what is your requirement. If your requirement is /16, /20, you'll get a /24, 22 maximum. And to get a /22, definitely you need to justify based on a demonstrated need. Criteria for small multi-homing assignment. For the small multi-homing assignment means who need a portable IPv4 address even if they are not a service provider. An enterprise can be, an university can be, a bank can be, right? A small multi-homing organization. So in this multi-homing organization, definitely you need to be multi-home now or in 1 month time. And the same way you need to demonstrate your current requirement is 25%, and in 1 year's time you'll have 50%. Then you'll get address from APNIC. If you need to know more about the qualification criteria, this is what the URL that you can use. I'll be sharing this slide with you end of the presentation. So yeah, you will have the URL handy with you. IPv6 eligibility criteria. If you have IPv4, you'll straight away will be eligible to get IPv6. If you are not, then you must be an LIR, right? And plan to provide, LIR means an ISP, plan to provide IPv6 within 2 years time and 200 end site only. That is for an ISP. For IPv6 also you can get it as an enterprise, as a small multi-homing organization. But the criteria is same, like you have to be either a small multi-homing organization. The difference between V4 and V6 is in IPv4 you need to show APNIC you are multi-home now, or in 1 month's time you will be multi-home. In IPv6 either you will be multi-home now or in 3 months time you will be multi-home. This is the difference only. In IPv4 1 month, in IPv6 3 months time. That's it. But there is a recent policy proposal has been accepted in APNIC member meeting, and on that policy, when it will be implemented in a very short time, then even to get an IPv6 address, you don't need to be multi-home. IPv6 address as an enterprise, you don't need to be multi-home. Even if you're a single home, you still can qualify to get IPv6/48, right? Yeah, so that will be done when the policy will be implemented soon. Okay. Then also you need to be very familiar with the policies as well, right? So when you are familiar with the policies, then you'll know more detail about how you can make use of all those addresses, public resources. To know more about policies, we have a very short and sweet URL, www.apnic.net/policies, right? Then at the final stage, you need to apply for address. So when you apply for address, there are two ways, definitely. If you are not an existing member of APNIC, new member, right, then you can use that URL, www.apnic.net service, become a member, right? So when you become a member, you can send your membership request along with your IP address request. You can send both together, right? So it's a very straightforward, simple form. You just capture your organization information and the number of address that you need. When you send it through, it will go to the hostmaster within a very short, 24 hours time, one business day. You'll get a reply from them, and within 3-4 days, your resource request will be processed. Okay. So when you send that the request, there are 6 stages that you need to go through. Application, right? So in application, you provide your organization name, or your name, your email address, and all sort of. Then your organization information, then your corporate information, then your billing address, then IP and AS number request detail, then confirmation page, summary you will see, and then payment, and that's it, done. So the new online application form, the payment is now just automated, online payment. If you want to pay by credit card, straight away you can make the payment, and then next day you'll get your resource. More friendly, interactive, and more informative. We just remove all those technical complications from that request, right? Contract management, everything are all automated. Kickstart IPv6 integration, straight away you can get IPv6 address. And essential whois objects will all be created automatically for you. But before, if you send requests 5-6 years before, lots of things you have to do it manually. But now all are automated. Right? So if you are an existing member, how you will get address? So for the existing member, you'll have an login page, like My APNIC login page. Just log into My APNIC, right? And when you are logged into My APNIC, then from the resource section, under My APNIC, the resource section, then you'll go to this section called IPv4 address, IPv6 address, or AS number. Just click on that and send your resource request. That's very, very straightforward for existing member. Evaluation by the APNIC hostmasters. So all the address space that you hold should be documented. So what are the existing address space if you have, how you used it, all need to be documented in the whois database, right? That can be either the RIR whois database or NIR whois database. In APNIC case, either APNIC database or APNIC NIR database. It has to be registered, all the existing IP addresses. And then we need to justify, or you need to justify your existing resources. Is there any reservation or not? So APNIC don't support any reservation policies, right? So you should not reserve any of address. So for example, when you received your previous allocation 5 years before, that time you had a plan to deploy dial-up, right? So for dial-up you have reserved 1/24 or 223, right? But then that project you haven't moved on, and now you are planning to deploy DSL. So what you did, you reserved /23 for dial-up. Probably in future you might need to deploy, but for DSL you need more address. So that's what the reservation, but we don't support it. We don't support that reservation is not accepted by the policy. So the policy tells whatever the address that you are not using it, just use it now. In future, if you need it, then it can be considered at that particular time, right? What is the situation at that time? But currently, just you have address, use it, don't reserve it. That's the policy now. Fast allocation, as I said, minimum you'll get a /24, maximum you'll get a /22. Okay, in IPv4. In IPv6, minimum you'll get a /32 IPv6 block. You can get larger than a /32, but you need to justify for that. And all the subsequent allocation after a /32 will be processed using HD ratio mathematics. This is a kind of a host density ratio, right? That's it. That's the end of the presentation for today. So this is that URL you can use to give us a feedback. So when you send us feedback from this URL, then when you submit it, then that URL will redirect to an FTP site. From that FTP site, you can download this presentation that I did today. Okay. So yeah, so just spare some time to send us the feedback, and then you will be redirected to an FTP site. From there you can download that presentation. So that's it. Is there any question for today? So yeah, good. If no question, then thank you very much. Hope that whole presentation will be useful for you, and hope we'll see you in any of the future e-learning session. As you know, we run our e-learning web class every Wednesday, 3 times in 3 slots. 10:30 in the morning in Brisbane time, 12:30 in the noon in Brisbane time, and